Action on first down, and Barnes looking downfield, takes his shot, launches for money. Parks, who catches it in stride. What a start for Barnes on the offense. 70 yards on the opening play.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Clean snap, good hole, got it out, and it's good! And Minnesota comes back to win it, 13-10.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Plumlee, caught, touchdown, Townsend, UCF leads 6-0.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Allen, it's Armstrong, handoff, fakes it, and he's in. Touchdown for the quarterback, the transfer from Virginia.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
They're going to go 5 wide here on 3rd down and 5. Cook clean in the pocket, has a man, caught for a touchdown. Mekhi Miller, the sophomore out of Overland Park. 18-yard touchdown reception, and Mizzou is on the board first.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Now on 4th down. Rolling out, they're going for it. Rashada launching downfield, looking for the end zone, and it's caught. Touchdown! Xavier Guillory!
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in 365 Sports on a Friday. The Smokes are off doing high school football today, so I am here alone, sad and lonely. No, that's not true at all. I've got Garrett in the studio with me. He's going to join me for a segment or two. Jack is here. He's got lots of questions about ACC realignment. You're going to hear from him. Jack is as worked up about something as I've ever seen him that doesn't have anything to do with stuff breaking in the building. So about this ACC realignment, he's got lots of questions. Levi, Emery, Owen is here. Owen has a lot of work to do to get back in my good graces. Garrett, he's his favorite already because he's picking LSU to beat FSU. But there are lots of things going on today, and I would love to have started this show with, hey, we had games on the field last night. There are things we can talk about. Florida looks as slow as an SEC team as I've seen in a very long time, and Billy Napier's got problems. Utah looks tough on defense, and obviously the offense will change when they get all their healthy players back, but they might be able to win a lot of games just punching people in the mouth over and over again on the defensive side of the ball. Mizzou got out by the skin of their teeth. So did Arizona State last night. UCF, big opening win over Kent State. Scored and never looked back. I think it was a 56-10 or 56-6. Something like that at the end of that one. But the big story, and the one we'll be covering a lot today, Jim Williams will be with us, to talk the media angle of it. We'll have Brett McMurphy talking just kind of the X's and O's of all of it. Then we've got David Teal talking about it from the ACC perspective, and Billy Embody talking about it from the SMU perspective, and then Sam Bradshaw will kind of give us his numbers game on it all, and then we'll wrap up with Grayson Grunhaver talking about Baylor versus Texas State this weekend, and then the top 5. So we're loaded. Guys, it happened. The ACC realignment happened. 3 teams voted against it. That was Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina. North Carolina released a statement last night saying they were voting against it because of the travel. Now, Garrett, I'm going to throw something out there.
Okay.
North Carolina may be realistically saying this right now, today. They don't like the travel aspect, and that's why they voted against it. All right. But if the Big Ten called North Carolina whenever the three dissenters and figure out a way out of the grant of rights or what the plan is to do that, and said, hey, North Carolina, would you like to be in the Big Ten as a full share member or even a partial share member if it was a raise from where they are? Where are they going to have to go play games?
That would be USC, that would be Oregon, Washington, and UCLA.
Yeah, so they will still have to go out there and do that if they joined another conference. Like I said, I might believe them a little bit today because they're trying not to show all their cards. But believe you me, Florida State and Clemson didn't vote against this because of the travel. They voted against it because they've been pretty, like one of them has been pretty adamant about it. The other one agreed with them back in the spring, but now is letting Florida State be the loud guy at the bar saying all this. Those three voted against it because they've got other plans. That's why they voted against it. You're not going to convince me otherwise, because if North Carolina is going to vote against it, just knowing what we know about what North Carolina was also in that group of teams in the spring that was talking about more revenue, are they voting against it because of travel? No, they're not. They're voting against it because they have other plans, just like the other two do. And that's fine. Do what you want to do, but don't pretend like it's just the travel.
I understand that, but I think also, like, I would feel more comfortable taking my team across country if I'm North Carolina and knowing that they're actually going to have some people there to play in front of. Like, if you go to USC, more than likely, that's going to be a big crowd. You go to Stanford and Cal, you're still going to have like 15 people in the stands. And that's a waste of everybody's time. So I understand it from that angle. But the more intriguing factor was when you were talking about this last week and we were talking about North Carolina and North Carolina State, who's going to flip. And you brought up the good point of North Carolina is, at the end of the day, how North Carolina State were trying to work together in this. But at the end of the day, North Carolina will look out for their own best interest. And I think kind of North Carolina State saw that and flipped on the end and ultimately let the dominoes fall. So I understand, but at the same time, going back to the travel, like, I get it, but it's not the biggest thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's not. By the way, for those asking, the Triple Option, my new show, which airs a couple hours before this one starts from 1 to 2 p.m. Central, we're not doing it on Fridays yet because we've got to figure out all of Fridays with me flying solo. So that's a Monday through Thursday show. Oh, would have been a really good day for me to do it, given the news that we got this morning about the ACC. But look, the NC State was with those other three.
Right.
And the reason I think NC State came off of that is because NC State is not guaranteed a play. Like North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson are not saying, hey, you have to take NC State if you take us. In fact, none of the three of them are looking out for any of the other two.
No.
If the SEC called and said, Clemson, we want you, but not the other two. We don't like them. They smell. We don't get it. Like, well, they're not welcome. Clemson would be like, all right, peace.
Yep.
Thanks for making all that noise, guys. So again, it is every man for themselves when it comes to realignment. And so, yeah, I know I've kind of been on the harping negative on all of that. And I'm not trying to dog on UNC. Like, vote how you feel you need to vote. That's your university, not mine. And my actual university is one of the ones that voted against it. So I do and there are things that are going to be done when it comes to travel. Like they've mentioned several times, Ross Dellinger reported this, the Cal Chancellor said it, that they might play the Olympic sports, volleyball, baseball, softball, Olympic sports. They might meet in Dallas and do things there. Now, here's what I will tell you. SMU does not have baseball or softball, so they're going to have to find a place to do that there.
Yeah.
That's not SMU, but SMU might be hosting a lot of ACC events, or the city of Dallas might be, and that's a great thing for the city of Dallas. It's a great thing for some hotels in the city of Dallas. It's not necessarily a good thing for the ACC's bottom line because they're going to be spending a lot of money, even still saving a little bit of time and money going from, New York to Dallas as opposed to New York to San Francisco. But But yeah, and look, I think SMU might deserve that a little bit considering they're going, we don't want any money right now.
How is that, like, legitimately, how is that sustainable? Like, I know they have a lot of money. Granted, I know they have a lot of money. But 10 years, you're willing to go 10 years, travel cost, everything.
Well,
like that makes no sense to me.
They weren't getting. Here's what. Yeah, no, they're not like they weren't getting. The gap between what they were getting in the AAC and what they are like what they're going to forego in the ACC is large. But for them in their minds, right now, it's only giving up the money you were getting in the AAC. Like, so they think it's a little bit smaller deficit in their minds. That so, like, I don't know what the AAC's money is. Let's just say it's $12 million a year. So they're not giving up 30 in their mind. They're giving up 12. That's what they're giving up. So they're really just trying to make up 12, and then they're going to spend on facilities and other what. Now, look, that is their opinion on that. And 9 years of not doing that, they might, after all that, be like, man, but, yeah, Lee. But here's what I'll tell you. For Cal, Stanford, and SMU, why not do this? Because the situation has backed you into a corner. It's the only thing you can do. For the ACC teams that are not the three that disagreed with this, the why not do this, it only really comes down to long plane rides. And you're going to get more money. Yes, you're going to spend more money on travel. But the only way that you can get more money from ESPN is to add teams because of the pro rata. And the only way that you can prevent ESPN from taking away money is to stay at 15 teams. Or above. So you have to stay at least 15. So the only way they can get any more money and guarantee any kind of solid future is to do this. Now, I don't. This and here's the other thing, and this is true for everybody not named the SEC and the Big Ten. This guarantees you nothing,
right?
It guarantees you nothing, but it's better than just not doing anything.
Okay, so all right, I understand. All right, so you bring in these three teams, and you're looking at it, broadcasting the fact Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina are out. So that's your balance. You lose 3 because you're at 18. You got the 15. You still have the money. But when you lose those 3. You lose your 3 top dogs. You mean to tell me nobody else is going to bolt and you're not going to lose the money?
Here's what I'll tell you on that. There's not, after those 3, a lot of people who would be guaranteed a home, which is one of the reasons that NC State had to be like, wait a minute. And look, I think if you were talking about the Big 12, like going to 20 teams, like obviously everybody's going to wind up probably doing, then NC State really fits well with
Louisville.
The Big 12. Louisville, Pitt, NC State, they fit really well with that down the line. But again, they can't really worry about down the line, especially if you're Cal, Stanford, and SMU. You have to worry about now, and now this is the only way to do it. So down the line, you can try, hope that these things work out for you. But yeah, look, if Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina find their way out of the league, that league's in trouble.
Right.
But again, where is everybody else can't just go somewhere, because the reason that it's only a few teams that are valuable is that there's only those few teams. So the ACC would be very much like the Big 12. Look, if those teams left and say the ACC and Big 12, it's not the Super League, it's just those teams leave, maybe one other, and they add somebody because the ACC could easily add somebody else in the interim or in the aftermath of that to keep them at 15. So if they lost 4 teams, let's just say for academic purposes, it's Miami. Because I would think that'd be the most likely.
Yeah, they're the wild card.
They're a wild card in this. But say Miami goes to those other 3 and leaves in whatever time period that is. Well, that puts you at 14. Well, you can call UConn tomorrow and put them and you're at 15 right there. So you're back where you need to be, okay? So you're at the threshold where ESPN can't take away money from you until the contract's over. Then they might take away money from you. But you have some time because you have that contract. So you can still stay together, and those teams go off, and then you're still the ACC. And then you have essentially the same situation the Big 12 had, where the two teams that have won your league the most are gone, and then it's kind of wide open for everybody to win it, and it's a restart. It's just that would be the phase of if those three teams, if any teams leave the ACC, that's the death knell of maybe everything, because that means the plug has probably been pulled on keeping it together in any kind of fashion that's close to what we know now.
Do you see a situation, because you mentioned Miami there and the academic prowess and them leaving, and given the ACC as a whole, it's more so they look at academics a little differently. Do you see a scenario where it's 2030 or something and it falls apart, Miami bolts? Does South Florida at that point, do you think they have a position to where you keep the Florida market? They're already an AAU program and they're starting to invest into it. Do you think that would be time out to where they might actually be able to do something?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I think maybe before, like I said, UConn, but it could be USF. They're an AAU school now.
Yeah.
They're building a new on-campus stadium if they can get the money approved and all that. So, I think USF there are schools that are trying to do what Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF did.
Yeah, they laid the blueprint.
And SMU, but they're way behind on doing it. They're a little bit behind. So we'll see what happens there. Got 2 super chats from B, Cal Chancellor, on non-revenue travel sports like baseball, softball, and volleyball and soccer. ACC is interested in using Dallas for a hub. And Dallas is a huge enough city where, even though they don't have the specific facility on campus at SMU, there's somewhere where you can host it.
I mean, even if you had to go to Frisco or something, there's so many options.
Yeah, there's a lot. There. I know you don't want to do high schools and stuff like that, but there are colleges There's colleges. I mean, for example, baseball. You could. I'm sure DBU would be happy to rent out their stadium for you, but. Or if you're not conflicting,
or even the old Globe Life, like say the Rangers are playing in the new field, because don't they use the old field still, but for football games and stuff? That could be a scenario.
Yeah, that could be super empty, but yeah. Come watch Cal and Wake baseball here at the old Globe Life Park.
Probably about a normal crowd anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, Matt Rogers, this is a happy day for us Big 12 fans. ACC signed on to live, but QOL may not be high. We'll have to our pick of the ACC after the top ones get out. I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know. Quality of life. I guess it's QOL. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how the next one's going to shake out, because you're getting to a point where the bigger the leagues get, and the Big Ten is going to see this. The Big Ten was in a really good spot at 16 teams. Mm-hmm. I think leagues are in a really good spot at 16. But when you go past 16, then your scheduling gets really, really difficult, and the NFL is the most watched league in America, any sport of anything. And they've got a really good scheduling model, but even still, I remember one time I was covering a Cowboys game. I can't remember who they were playing, but it was this is the first time that this team has been to Dallas since 1999. And you're like, how is that even possible, given that they have a scheduling model that rotates around so much?
Right.
But it just still happens that way. So when you're 18, you might be able to you're obviously not going to, it's not 32 teams where you got to do that, but you're still going to have a scenario where Oregon is going to be at Purdue for one time every 6 years as opposed to every 4, or every 8 years as opposed to every 4. And so it gets bigger. It's not a conference anymore. It's a league. And again, that's where we're headed.
Isn't that the ironic thing? Because all of the talk, right, on the SEC was you go so long without play. Georgia and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And you were drilling into how that's not the proper way to do things. But the more you grow, that's just going to be a common theme. Everybody's going to be in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's it. You're you say hey, we're going to fix the schedule.
Yeah.
We're going to fix the schedule. But then you add so many teams where you're well, we've made it a little better now, but we still have a lot of teams. So Texas A&M and Georgia will play each other a little closer, but it'll still be a long time.
Right.
Right. So relatively not as stupid as they just played for the first time, a year ago.
Yeah.
And they've been in the same league for a decade. That was just dumb.
Yes.
That was just dumb. And the SEC uses to do dumb things like that. But that was a Big 12 thing. The Big 12 was scratching his head like, hey, why are our ratings lower? What are we missing? We're missing something. Like, every 2 years, for 2 years, you don't have the biggest rivalry in your conference that you had before in Oklahoma and Nebraska. So you took away a huge TV game because you're like, well, the math says we should do this. And the other conferences are like, no. These two are going to play every year.
And they should.
Yeah. These two, and that's how they do it. Look, Florida State and Miami are going to play every year in the ACC, right?
Yeah.
Look, Duke and Wake Forest were so mad, not Duke and Wake Forest, UNC and Wake Forest were so mad that they didn't play each other in the schedule a couple years ago. They just scheduled it as a non-con game. Because they're like, we're going to play this damn game. Like, we're not losing this. And so, yeah, I don't know. That was how things went back in the old days of the Big 12.
Yeah.
Where they were like, but the chart. And you're like, dude.
Pay attention to the surroundings.
Bleep your chart. Let's do some things. Oh, Texas really wants to be Oklahoma's rival when you already were. You were already playing that game every year. Well, we're going to play that game every year, so we can't do that twice. We can't get big TV numbers twice.
No, it's blasphemy.
Like, what are you doing? So those are the things they have to figure out all down the line. And look, I'm interested to see how SMU navigates this. I'm interested to see how Stanford and Cal navigate this. And I feel different ways about it. Stanford and Cal are in this situation completely of their own making. And SMU is trying to take advantage of something. Like, maybe it's desperate, but these are desperate times for a lot of teams. You want to talk desperate? You know who's really desperate? Oregon State and Washington State.
Yes.
They woke up this morning knowing what they already probably knew, but they were going to have to, go to a league and just wait out and see what happens next.
And I would much rather watch them play football than Cal or Stanford any day of the week.
Right now, that's absolutely true. Now, if you're talking about Olympic sports, I'd rather see Stanford versus anybody.
Well, yeah.
And almost anything. But if you are talking about football right now, and that's what making this move, I said this on Twitter a couple weeks ago when this kind of popped up. All things being equal, and no knock to Cal and Stanford, but if I'm going to send my teams, especially my big teams.
Yes.
If I'm going to send, Wake Forest is a big team. I mean, they win a lot of games in the ACC right now, right? Mm-hmm. Wake Forest is that team, right? They win a lot of games. They're good. They won last night. Really good team, right? Consistent with Dave Clawson. If I'm going to send UNC, Clemson, Pitt, anybody across the country, I'm not going to send them into Stanford's third full stadium. No. I don't want that. I would love to be able to okay, look, if we're going to send somebody across the country, if we're going to send Miami all the way to Wazoo, I know that Pullman, Washington is going to be packed and lit that night. That's what I want. So those are the things. Okay, so our web said, to be fair, the NCAA rules drove division, so where are you going to put OU, UT, Nebraska in the same decision or not have a conference championship game? This was the late 90s. Yeah, but in the late 90s, there were still conferences that were doing, yes, you're in the divisions. You're just not doing – so Oklahoma and Nebraska would have played every year in different divisions, but that would have meant that Oklahoma doesn't play Iowa State. That one's pushed out a little further. Or – Oklahoma doesn't play, or Nebraska doesn't play A&M, whatever it is, because that game's going to take the place of it. They could have easily done that because there were leagues already doing that.
Yep.
There were leagues already doing that had divisions, and the Big 12 was like, nah, we're not going to.
We're good.
We're not going to do that. The SEC was doing it, right?
Yes.
Cross divisions.
Absolutely.
They had divisions at the time, and they had a championship game. They were making sure that, even though they had those divisions, that Florida and Tennessee the same division, but that Florida and LSU were going to play every year.
Yep.
That's a game, okay? They made that decision. The Big 12, all they had to do was look at the other leagues and go, oh, that's how you're doing it. Okay, I got it. I figured, sorry, that was dumb. We shouldn't have done that. Oh, wow, that Florida LSU game got big numbers. How did Tech and Iowa State do? Oh, not as much. What did Oklahoma, Nebraska do 2 years ago? Oh, the same as LSU, Florida? What do you know?
How'd that
Remember,
happen?
it was the 90s, and not everybody was so rock hard for their league.
Yes.
I mean, that's the one thing I've not gotten in all of this. Like the one old-fashioned part of me. I want FSU to have a good schedule, right, as a Florida State fan,
Right.
because I know it affects how they're perceived and how they're ranked and how things move on. But at the end of the day, the 2 national championships that Clemson has won, I'm not happy about that. I'm enraged as a Florida State fan because I want that to be mine. Look, Texas is not happy that OU won or was in the playoff and they've not been. They weren't like, oh, yay, Big 12. A&M's not happy that LSU won in 2019. You think A&M's sitting around going, man, it was so good for us. I mean, maybe, like, in the grand scheme of things, but I would just never be the guy who's going to chant for the conference.
I mean, I do in a sense, but at the same time, I've gotten so tired of every year just getting smashed by Alabama. It is nauseating. And so, but I have so much respect for them. But at the same time, I totally get where you're coming from because it is frustrating as hell when you know that your team could be there, but that one juggernaut's right in front of you every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Jim Williams joins us to describe how you forego all this money if you're Cal, Stanford, especially SMU. This is 365 Sports.
During the Labor Day sales event, save big on a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months. Or a new Jeep Gladiator Sport with employee pricing for all plus 1.9% for 72 months and an extra $1,000 rebate. Or get a new Jeep Compass 10% off MSRP and no payments for 90 days on all offers at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Great friend of the program, Jim Williams, Forbes, and many other publications, but Forbes is a darn good one, so we're going to mention that one first, but it's been on the show quite a bit. And Jim, the ACC, a conference with you are very familiar, has decided to expand in a way that makes less sense than any of the other expansions, but this is where we are right now. Your thoughts on how it went down, why NC State flipped back, and what the future holds for the 3 dissenting votes?
Paul, one of those I can go, okay, look, it's musical chairs. There's only a few of these Power 5 chairs open. Stanford, Cal wanted it. SMU clearly wanted it. And the only place to go was the ACC. And so, logically, it doesn't make any sense because, last time I checked the map, there's a lot of distance between Tobacco Road and Strawberry Canyon out at Cal. But at the end of the day, it was up to the conference, and the conference said, okay, let's do it. And they probably wanted it too, because if they lose, some schools, which some feel that they will, that, they have backloaded themselves ahead of time. So, whether it made sense or not, very little makes sense in what we're dealing with in these realignment situations. One thing I do know, and this is something you and I share, is the knowledge and a passion for FSU, and I'm really perplexed by why FSU and Clemson and some of the others were just have said how many different ways they can get out of the conference, when it just doesn't seem to be as easy as they think.
No, it's not. And I think sometimes this is a uniquely American skill, I think, of like, as long as you are loud about something, people think you might have it figured out. But right. I think that's right now they're in the let's be loud phase, and then you guys better figure it out, because we're going to get hoarse here in a second. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've seen some, and I'm sure you guys have seen just as many crazy ideas. There was one floated around the other day that, and again, this is a rumor. It has zero validity to it, but it was just kind of what the thing was talking about, that they could buy their way out of the conference for $120 million. Then Fox would put up the $500 million to get them into the Big Ten, and then they would, even though they would have to play their games, the home games, on ESPN, that would still be okay, because Fox can make money on, on the games that would air on NBC, CBS, and where, all the other channels that Big Ten is on. And you're thinking, okay, let's get this straight. In 5 years, they would have expended $1 billion on FSU. On what planet does that make sense?
No, look, I'm the biggest fan there is, and I wouldn't spend $1 billion on them for anything. It is. But for the 3 schools that are coming, I mean, they're not just foregoing media rights for 3 years.
Oh my God!
For 9 years. How do you sustain without that money?
I don't know. And here's the irony of all this, right? The irony of all of this is, had they, had all of the Pac-10 that, went in different directions, taken the first bid, they'd all come out either right where they are now, or even some cases a little better. I mean, hell, if they had taken the Apple money, they'd been better off.
Yeah, that's where I will, from now to the end of time, be befuddled at how bad that these are and these are people that are learned individuals, Jim. They run universities, but they just could not get out of their own way. And here it was either a big conspiracy against Oregon State and Washington State, or just, a confederacy of dunces, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, and even with the 4, right? They could have come up with a deal if they wanted to keep the conference together, and have come up with some, good American schools as well as Mountain West schools, backloaded themselves, and basically, Stanford would have had the rubber stamp for any of these schools that they wanted, and for all intents and purposes, they could have created their own conference, and yet they end up, going across the country and taking less money than they could have probably gotten in a secondary deal, again, with Apple or someone like that. So to me, it didn't make sense. But, again, what makes sense in this world at times, it befuddles me as well. It's just weird. But, remember, you and I talked about this, and David and Craig and the gang, we all talked about this last year, about how close and people forget this, it was one of the things I wrote in Forbes, how close they came to actually doing a merger between the ACC and the Pac.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, they could have ended up in the same place they are now with full shares, had the two sides, figured out how to get to here.
Yeah, that's where all of this, again, that's all the opportunities that the Pac-12 in particular had. And the ACC is trying to avoid being an amalgamation of every bad thing that's happened to the Big 12 and Pac-12 and everyone else. So I get why they're doing this. I totally get why NC State, backed off of travel is not going to be the thing that's going to keep us from doing this. I think they were on board with North Carolina in that, we buy the travel thing, and then the realization happens if the Big Ten called North Carolina tomorrow and said, hey, we'd like you to come, North Carolina is not going to say, hey, well, make sure we get the Wolfpack with us too. They're just going to go. No. So you got to protect yourself, and their best bet right now is staying with the ACC and keeping it together.
Absolutely. And let's just play this up for just 1 second. All right. Let's say that FSU and Clemson decide to bolt. All right. If FSU and Clemson decides to bolt and they pay the $120, and then they have to pay, let's just say they negotiate down to $300 million instead of half of it. That's $600 million in a war chest you got at the ACC. You can't rebuild the ACC with $300 million?
Yeah, I would think so. So, yeah.
So what exactly are you worried about? I mean, you're in a position, you're in a far better position than the Pac was. You're in a far better position than the Big 12 was at that situation. I'm not saying losing these teams aren't going to hurt. Of course it hurts. But the point being that they've got a king's ransom to get out.
Yeah, and the ACC is, and Jim, I've mentioned this a couple of times in the show this week, and so if people hear me and they think it's repetitive, but I do want people's opinions on it. The weird thing about the ACC is, while this is a good move for now, who knows what a good move for tomorrow is, because the pieces are getting moved on the board so much, but FSU and Clemson seem pretty desperate to get out, and I'll throw UNC on that right now, even though they're trying to say it's just about planes, which I don't believe, because again, if the Big Ten called them, they're going to have to ride those planes twice as much as they would, because there's 2 more teams over there than there would be in Stanford and Cal. But those 3 teams are desperate to get out. the ACC is desperate to stay at its revenue distribution and stay 15 teams or above. And the three teams that are coming in are desperate to be in the Power 5 in the big time, or the Power 4 now, but in the power conferences in the big time. So this probably has a weird ending, because when desperation collides, that's usually not a good thing.
Right. But I just, what I couldn't understand was Phillips is trying everything he could possibly do to get them extra money. He ends up negotiating a ridiculous deal with, Cal, Stanford, and SMU, which was 100% in favor of the ACC, and they're still pissed off at it.
Yeah. 1 second there, Derek. But there are, nobody, like the conference commissioners, unless you're Yormark, Petiti now, or Sankey, like you're just fighting a losing battle uphill. Jim, how do you see this working out when it comes to just television ratings, adding these teams in? Do you think it's going to do anything for the ACC to have Pitt and Cal, or SMU and Wake, or is that just really not their concern right now?
Well, I mean, look, there's potential, okay? There's potential. You got Duke and Stanford, okay? You got Virginia and Cal. You got some schools there that, I mean, these teams, it hasn't, I can honestly see a situation where Stanford could end up winning, not this year, but in a couple of years. Stanford could win the ACC football championship. I could see that happen. I mean, we don't have to go that far back to when teams were doing really well with Harbaugh, and even under Shaw. This Cal team, probably the Cal team of this year, probably is a bowl eligible team. I mean, it's not like they're bad. So, and then of course, in the Olympic sports, which we don't really seem to count, but should, Stanford has always been one of the tops in that category, as well as Cal has found it too. So there's reason to watch the content that's going to be there, but it just doesn't roll off the tongue, as you say. Stanford and Pitt and Cal and BC, are almost as exciting as UCLA and Maryland and and USC and Rutgers.
Jim, do you think that there is an eventual appetite for a super league?
I think it's going that way. I think if you look, and honestly, the Big Ten, there's a thing I recommend everyone take a quick look. This one, I'll post it online on Twitter if you want, but it's Front Office Sports had a good article this morning about how the Big Ten basically is positioning themselves as the NFL, where you've got games on Fox, CBS, and and on NBC, you've got a game that starts at noon, you got a game that starts at 3:30, and you've got a game that starts Saturday night, and you've got coast to coast, interest in all the games, and so they've taken the theory of the case for the Big Ten has been, let's make this a national conference, let's make this as close to it, mirroring, if you will, the NFL model, where you're on basically, every platform you can be on. And so, this is the first of that particular year, and I did a thing with Todd Blackledge yesterday, and it's up today about, big Saturday night and how they're really blowing that up. And they're going to take it on the road with the pregame show and all that. And Peacock has got games tomorrow, and CBS is doing their first Big Ten game in quite a while tomorrow. And so, it's going to be, the Big Ten's going to be omnipresent. Everywhere you look, you're going to see Big Ten content. So yeah, I really do see the Super League situation coming about. There really isn't, that's the only way that they're going to be able to sustain the cash that it's going to take to make this stuff work.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, hope that they figure out a way to stave that off, because it would just be not what we like. We like the NFL for what it is. We like college football for what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can actually sit down and watch a football game and not worry about what conference I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, or for that matter, I know what conference I'm in. I really don't concern myself about that. I just enjoy the game. And, if they take that away, then you're right. They will have screwed things up, because they've already done a seriously good job of doing that.
Yes, they have. Well, Jim, thank you so much for always being on.
Have a nice holiday.
Yeah, absolutely. Enjoy Labor Day. Well, we don't really take, Labor Day, we don't really take it off because it's the first day after. So it's, not like I dig ditches or anything. So, I think I'm all right, and nothing's going to change for me. But Jim, enjoy week 1 of college football. We'll talk to you soon.
Sure. All right, be well. Take care.
All right. Jim Williams, good friend of the program. Always love having him on. We'll take a break when we come back. Jack McKenzie has many questions, and I have at least 2 or 3 answers for him on the ACC. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, General Manager, CEO Ted Teague, sending me their Labor Day weekend deals that are good through Tuesday, September the 5th, including $12,466 off MSRP on a brand new 2023 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4x4. The Labor Day weekend is here at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Save $12,000 off MSRP on a brand new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab 4x4 for the Labor Day weekend, all the way through Tuesday, September the 5th. $12,515 off MSRP on a brand new 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie 4x4, $11,500 off MSRP on a brand new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star 4x4 for the Labor Day weekend. Save up to $6,000 off MSRP on the brand new 2023 Dodge Charger GT. Save up to $6,000 off as well on MSRP on the brand new 2023 Dodge Challenger GT. Save $7,500 off MSRP on the brand new 2023 Dodge Charger R/T for the Labor Day weekend. Again, all of these incentives, discounts, and more available at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, the Labor Day sales weekend through Tuesday, September 5th.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you can't make it to Riverbend, DoorDash is available to bring it to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. If you guys don't know who this is Jack McKenzie, host of the College Chaos podcast on Chris Ball College Football. He and Garrett host this podcast together. And Jack today, when he opened his phone at 10:45 a.m. after waking up, because he's a young man and can wait till...
I was working at 8 a.m.
Sure, I don't believe you. Whatever. I
was publishing articles on Sikkim365.com.
You could have AI do that. I'm just saying. You could say it. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
I wish.
I wouldn't know. But Jack sent me a list of questions, and he said, do you think this would be a segment? I said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. About ACC realignment, Jack, because you were thoroughly confused.
I am still thoroughly confused.
Okay.
I started off then, and I'll start off now with, how does this help the ACC? How do these three schools help the ACC?
On the field, like as far as television ratings and all that, probably not. Especially immediately, unless all three are good. I actually think SMU could kind of slide right into the middle of the pack of the ACC most years, but they're well behind the top teams, and they know that. I mean, I'm not saying anything that SMU doesn't know. They haven't had this juice to recruit with ever, but I think they could probably step in and do fairly well, just because of what they've been trying to do the last couple of years. I think they'd be ahead of Boston College right now. I think they'd be ahead of a couple others, but as far as on the field, no. How it helps the ACC right now is their deal states that if they stay above 15 teams or above, then nothing changes from ESPN. And this protects against them losing the three teams I think they feel that they're going to lose. So they at least, it doesn't trigger a renegotiation with ESPN and make them scramble. Now, if 4 teams leave, which I'm sure was going to be your next question, then that creates a different problem in that now they'll have to find somebody else. But it's not like, especially given the fact you heard Jim Williams just then talk about, look, they'll have a bunch of money in the war chest that all these teams will owe them. And it's not like they wouldn't wake up in the morning and be like, you've got 6 hours to get somebody to join the conference, go. It wouldn't be like that. So I think they'd have time to call USF, UConn, whoever they wanted to, and say, hey, you guys, you ready? You're in. Let's go.
How is this not just like an admission of defeat to those three schools, though? Like, just being like, yeah, you guys are going to leave before the contract's up. We know.
I don't think it's an admission of defeat. I think it's just saying, like, you guys are going to do what you're going to do, and we have to be prepared to move on without you. So, and maybe it's an admission of defeat, but they're still in a good spot because they're still going to get paid. Because I think they have to operate on, look, Florida State's made their position very clear. And Clemson and North Carolina voting the way they did have made their position very clear in that we're not interested in what's going to help the rest of you out. We're interested in what's going to help us out. And what those schools are interested in, and they're like, fine, yes, thank you. We'll take $6 million more. Not going to say no to it. But we want $30 million more. So getting us 20% of the way there isn't blowing our skirt up, so to speak.
I'm just wondering how much they're really getting them there. Like, I remember from a Big 12 perspective, Brett Yormark was always harping on they need to be additive, not dilutive. I'm still struggling to see how these three, and possibly a fourth in the future that could be UConn or Memphis, would truly be additive and not dilutive.
Well, and that's a very good point, because right now it's additive in that they have a clause in their contract that says they get this money, and then the three schools have said, we're not even going to take most of that money or any of it if you're SMU.
That's the thing.
And give it to you. So right now it's additive in that perspective. But when the contract comes back around, which is a long time from now, it might turn around and be dilutive. So it's additive today. It's probably dilutive in the future.
Which just leads me back to why. Like, you've got to be making these moves for the future, not just the short-term future, the long-term future, because it seems like no matter what, that short-term future includes Florida State, Clemson, and UNC leaving.
So, look, for Cal and Stanford, there was no real short-term future, so they kind of had to do this.
I understand why they wanted in.
For the ACC, I think they think that they have a long-term future with FSU and Clemson because of the grant of rights and how impenetrable it might be. But I do think that they are guarding against the fact that right now, there's a lot of like schools just going Leroy Jenkins, and that's what that FSU and Clemson are going to do, is just run out and do exactly what they want to do and worry about the money on the back end. So if that happens, then all the legal documents in the world, they could be like, but this paper says this, and they're like, yeah, it does, but here's the check. And we're going to figure out our own on our own because we have a place to go now, and we'll figure out the rest of it. Because, look, if if Cal and Stanford and SMU are willing to take no money or less money, then Florida State and Clemson might be able to figure that out to get in another league for the same amount of time. So, I mean, that might be the new thing. Is like, we'll forego all this money because we'll figure out a way to make it on the back end, private equity and whatnot. But it's all theoretical.
Yeah, I have so many doubts about that. And I guess my last real question here, I know we're running a little short on time, is just how does this not move college football further down the road of decoupling from the other sports? Because the geographic distance is crazy. Football is the only sport that's really making the money. Basketball makes a little, and the ACC has historically been a strong basketball conference, but how does this not take you down that road?
I don't think it. It does. I mean, eventually, and look, I'm an advocate, and I think it should have been for a long time, because you have to start treating things as they are and not how you think they should be. And you can, as long as you treat something as it is, you can maybe make it the way you think it should be. But if you're not treating it in a realistic fashion, then you can never really change it, right? So if you're saying, well, football is the same as softball, like softball is begging you to be like, no, it's not. Like we maybe need you to take this out because, look, and I get that like cutting off in the middle of the country and like letting Cal and Stanford fly to Dallas is going to be a little bit better and vice versa on the other side. But it's still, that's a crap load of flights to Dallas. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're going to play. You're really going, any time that those teams play, anybody from the West Coast and East Coast meet in anything, it's not any time, but like,
you're spending half your season in Dallas.
You're
if you're those two
spending half
schools.
the year in Dallas. If you're, you're spending half the year in Dallas for your Cal and Stanford. And then everybody else is going to Dallas a lot more than they normally would. So yeah, it's going to be a point where you're like, man, I am super sick of DF or Love Field or DFW. Like, it's just going to be one of those deals. So, yeah, they've got to figure that out. Jack, thank you so much. I think
Thanks for having me on.
are the avatar for most people when it comes to why does this make
Don't put that pressure on me.
sense? Well, I mean, you're here.
Yeah,
you're the avatar.
I guess I am here.
You're the avatar. When we come back, Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code STICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagney is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagney. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Flying without the smokes today, so I had to, not that we wouldn't have if they were here, but we had to bring in the big guns. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ, joins us now, and he has been with us all throughout this realignment saga. And Brett, of all of the things that have happened in realignment, this is obviously the most confusing to a lot of people because it is there's a couple of chairs left, and they might be on the ACC deck, so go ahead and jump in them. How did this change from the not having enough votes to swinging what is NC State onto supporting this move where they didn't a couple weeks ago?
Basically, they've been adjusting the revenue that they would receive by adding new members, and they've kind of tweaked it a little bit over the past few weeks, and ultimately it got to the point where SMU originally was only going to get, was not going to get revenue for the first 7 years. That was increased to the first 9 years. And then Cal and Stanford will not get full revenue shares for the first 9 years either. And so it's, more money. And, I don't know specifically what was the number one factor for NC State, but that's got anything to do with anything related to college athletics, it had to do with money. And certainly, you know, those 11 other schools were able to convince NC State to flip from no to yes. And so now you've got Stanford and Cal coming to the ACC next year. And you've got Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina. Got their lawyers looking at ways to get out. And, you know, as Florida State's president has said publicly, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how. So I think for the ACC, it's great for them adding those schools, I guess, but you're putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound.
How does this, they're protecting themselves in the short term, but if Florida State, Clemson, UNC leave, and that there's no, you know, there might be a fourth team that changes their mind once those three are out, obviously, but if those three do find a way to leave in the next year or two, does that Band-Aid really only stick until their contract is up? Because no matter who they would maybe try to add to replace those teams and get back to the number they were comfortable with, would still not be Florida State, Clemson, or UNC.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I had reported earlier this week that ESPN, as part of their deal with the ACC, they are able to renegotiate with the ACC if the ACC's membership drops below 15 schools. So that includes Notre Dame. So basically for the ACC, they also have a deal in that, or they also have the ability in that deal where if they add any new members, ESPN's on the hook for paying them the same as any current member. So it didn't matter if they're adding SMU or Cal or Stanford, whoever it was, the ACC would get the same amount of money. So basically for the ACC, they're looking at it, we think we're going to lose Florida State, Clemson, Carolina, maybe other schools down the road. So it's kind of like a storm. Do you want to, if you know a storm's coming, do you want to go to the grocery store a couple of weeks ahead of time and stock up on what you need, or do you want to wait until the last minute and just kind of go through the aisles and grab what's left? So they decided they wanted to go ahead and stock up early, get a couple of Power 5 schools. And look, I know geography is crazy. I understand that. But in Stanford, they are getting the number one best all-around athletic program in the country, not last year, but the last 25 years. So that will help their Olympic sports. Unfortunately, this is all football related, but I think it's more just, it's an insurance policy. And these were the best options, and it was better than waiting till the last minute and then grabbing some warm bodies from the American Conference, wherever that would have been.
What, I know that Mike Oresco said that they're not going to expand westward in the AAC. So does that mean it's the Mountain West and whatever their best offer they can make, it didn't have to really be their best, but whatever offer they make to Oregon State and Washington State, that's where they're going to go?
Yeah, basically, surprise, surprise, I was, smart aleck on Twitter. But I said that, Oregon State and Washington State basically have three options. One is to join the Mountain West. Two is to try to build up the Pac-2 by adding schools from other conferences. Or three is to join the Mountain West. So, I think they're going to join the Mountain West.
Yeah. So from SMU's perspective, I kind of heard this from a couple of alums today, but did they view this as giving up $30+ million a year, or do they view this as, look, they were only making whatever they were making in the AAC right now, which was less, so they're really only giving up the AAC money and not the ACC money?
Right. I mean, I will give SMU credit. This is a long play. This is a 15 or 20 year play that they're doing here, because you're right. They're giving up, look, in the American, they got maybe, I don't know the numbers. It's probably around 10 or 11 million, if that much. Now you're going to the ACC and you're getting nothing for 9 years, but in that year 10, you're going to get, 35 million or maybe 40 million. So you can sit here and do the math on how long it would take SMU to make up that 10 million over those 9 years. What, three years maybe you make it up? So of course, that's year 10, 11, and 12. But you can make that up. More importantly, though, you're in a better conference. And in theory, you're going to have better teams come in and play in your stadium and in your basketball arena. And you're going to have North Carolina and Duke come play in Moody Coliseum. I think that's what it's still called.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a value on that. And they couldn't get North Carolina and Duke to even get within 500 miles of Dallas, Texas, if they didn't have to. But now they're in the same conference, so they'll get that. They could get Florida State or a Clemson, as long as they're in the league, to come in and play football games. They could get Miami to come in there. So they're going to make money in other ways. And so obviously financially they're able to do that with their boosters. So I actually think it's smart of them to do this, because look, if you stay in a group of 5 and you don't do something like this and you just wait around and wait for a conference to send you an invite, there's no guarantee that's going to happen. And the bottom line is, when we get 5 or 10 years down the road and the Big Ten and the SEC have 24 schools and the Big 12 has 20 or 24, whatever it is, there isn't going to be any Pac-12 and there may not be any ACC. I don't know, but SMU's got a lot better chance to land somewhere in one of those 3 major conferences if they have success in the ACC than if they just stayed behind in the American and had success in the American.
Yeah, look, as an FSU alum who lives 90 miles away from the stadium at SMU, I would really love it if they, for the short time, just threw the Knowles there 1 or 2 times, if they can get them there. Of course, I guess the only thing guaranteed for the ACC is that Florida State and Clemson will be there in 2024, but not necessarily 2025, right?
Correct. They will be, obviously this year, then 2024, and then they've got till next August to announce if they're going to leave before 2025. But look, even if they do announce they're going to leave, they still have to get out of the grant of rights. Mm-hmm. They still have to get out of that, and that's not going to be simple. All the other, realignment stuff that I've discussed with you and we've seen happen in the past few years, it's with schools, Oklahoma and Texas, et cetera, that had 1 or 2 years left on their media rights deal. They've got 12 years left, 11 years, 10 years, whatever that number is. That's not so simple to get out. And, oh, by the way, the ACC's simply not going to say, oh, here, write us a check and we'll let you go. They're going to fight it. They're going to try to keep them there because that keeps the conference together longer.
Brett, do you think that this does anything to stave off any kind of Super League any longer than it would have staved it off anyway?
No, it has nothing to do with it, to be honest. I think ultimately it boils down to when those schools leave the ACC. Because like Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, said recently, look, we're fine at 16. We're happy here. We've got, we're not looking to expand. We love our membership. Well, yeah, that's true. But then what if suddenly Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, Virginia, et cetera, suddenly they're not in the ACC? Well, they're going to have a different tune. So that's when we're going to see the next merry-go-round as far as the major realignment, is when these schools challenge to get out of the ACC. And when that happens, we'll see something as weird as the realignment's been in the past 20 years. We will then see something we've never seen before, and that is 2 conferences fighting over teams to join their conference. And that's what will happen with some of these ACC schools, is the Big Ten and SEC will be fighting over to get these schools, because some of them are the biggest brands in college athletics, and that's how you're going to increase the revenue for your conferences, which we haven't even mentioned. The end game is these schools and conferences are going to have to compensate these players, whether it's through the TV deal, the college football playoff, however they do it. This is separate from NIL. This is from the schools. Well, how are the schools going to do that? If they've got the most money for their TV deals, they'll have the most money to be able to pay their players. They can adjust on the fly a lot easier. And, oh, by the way, the better players will go where they can make the most money. And so those conferences should also have that success on the field because you're able to pay their players.
Do you think this puts endanger any of the schools that are in, even the Big Ten and the SEC, long term we're talking about here, that are not brand names? Or just by the fact that they're in those leagues, are they protected?
No, I don't. I think somewhere down the road that can happen, but that's as long as the university president and the school, the football programs are aligned with the universities, that's not going to happen. A university president is not going to vote another university president out of a league. However, if we get to a point where the football programs, if they split away from the universities or they're not a part of the university, they just kind of represent the university, but they're not affiliated officially with the university. Say we have the SEC Football Federation. Then at that point, I could see the SEC, calling up Vanderbilt and say, hey, we love you, Vanderbilt, but you're not going to be in the SEC Football Federation. You will continue to be an SEC member in all sports. But since football is not governed by our university schools, you're out. And then we're going to add different brands to different schools. And that way, you bring in the biggest brands to these 2014 conferences I was talking about. And then it's going to look basically like the NFL. You're going to have the biggest market teams in those two leagues, and that will draw the most TV dollars. And one will be like the AFC, one will be like the NFC, and the winner of both conferences will play for college football Super Bowl.
Brett, do you think this will give you an opportunity now that this is done? Obviously you wait on the Mountain West and the remaining Pac-2, but will this give you an opportunity to cover something other than realignment for maybe more than 30 minutes a day?
I would think so, but probably not. Something else will come up. Mountain West, Oregon State, Washington State will get settled, then something else will come up. There's actually, I hate to do it, but there's something else that could happen I can't share with you. But is the great Neil Young once saying, rust in college football realignment never sleeps.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for hopping on with us every time that you do. It's always great stuff that you give us some great information. And so when that next thing happens, we'll call you. So thank you so much, and great work that you're always doing at Action Network HQ.
You got it. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, there you go. Brett McMurphy, Action Network HQ. And there, Garrett, he said, look, there's always, he said, there's something else out there. And, maybe that's going to happen, oh my gosh. So, like I said, something's always out there. This is the first full week. This is the second week of college football games. We even mentioned Alabama's named their starting quarterback for tomorrow, Jaden Milroe. I haven't mentioned that. Haven't gotten into the fact that, Utah punched Florida in the mouth last night. And
that was so ugly.
Graham Mertz really looks in over his head just at that right now. Nebraska was totally Nebraska that they have been last night. And Matt Rule, even with all the new players, they fumbled, committed penalties.
Jeff Sims, I feel so bad for that young man. That pick was brutal.
But what are we talking about? The day before, all these games, most of the teams debut, we have hardly even mentioned the fact that you and I hate each other for the next 72 hours.
Very true.
And that's a huge game this week because the AAC is expanding.
I can't wrap my head around this. It is mind-boggling. I just want to know what's next because I wonder if that is, because I really do. I think it's going to go to these weird tiers and split, and you're going to see all these conferences that stand right now look totally different and get back to a more regional aspect in the end. But that's to be seen. But I'm really waiting to see what Brett says because he got my ears perked on that.
Yeah. What that other thing is.
Yeah, that other thing.
Well, just follow him on Twitter. He'll break some huge news, and we'll get him. He was great. I contacted him this morning. He said, 4:00, let's go. It's and look, what's kind of weird about this one is that with the Big 12 and Pac-12, there was this fervor for who's going to be there. And I think for ACC fans, this has been met with Oh, okay. Does it mean that Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina are going to stay? No. We're going to fight with them forever? Yeah. Like that's, I mean, it didn't change much unless you're talking about the individual schools. It didn't change much for what Jim Phillips is going to have to continue to deal with.
No, I mean, it's inevitable. You're going to lose your main brands. It's just how do you stave off the inevitable of just losing your whole conference and have it collapsing out from under you like George Kliavkoff did. And at this rate, man, it almost seems like you can't because you're not going to be able to bring, there's no brands left to fill the void left behind. And Notre Dame is the biggest wild card in all of this. And I would be so furious if I was anybody in the ACC who didn't want this to happen because you could have easily, like you mentioned, you could easily fixed all of this and made the ACC the premier third if Notre Dame would have just said, hey, we'll come play football with y'all as well.
Yeah. But Notre Dame, well, here's the other thing. Notre Dame has no incentive to do that.
No.
They have no incentive to do that because they're negotiating their own TV deal with NBC that's going to pay them more than the ACC.
Which is ridiculous.
And guess what? When they get that more money for those 7-8 home games a year that NBC will get, or the neutral site game, whatever they do, but 7 or 8 games a year is what NBC is going to get. Most years. 8 others.
Right.
Sometimes 6, but like 4, 6 to 8 games, they're going to get more from NBC than the ACC is getting from ESPN. They're going to get more for just that one school. And guess what? They don't have to split any of that money. They have to just take it right and put it in their pocket. So until that deal goes away, Notre Dame shouldn't. The thing that irritates me is that they shouldn't have any kind of, when it comes to football in that league, they shouldn't have a say.
No. All right, so I'm curious on this. At the end of the day, Florida State's out.
Yeah.
And they are looking for greener pastures. Would you rather see them SEC or would you rather see them in the Big Ten?
I'd rather see them in the SEC.
Just clearly straight up
the
SEC.
I mean, look, if you're going to ask me, if it's about matchups,
right?
I want them to play Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn, Alabama. Like, if you're telling me that this is now about television and what the best television thing is, Florida State versus those teams is a whole lot more fun to watch, even though I understand by listing that off, I'm just like, ugh.
That's get a little nauseous.
Look, they play 2 SEC games this year. The first one and the last one. The last one
count after last night.
The last one I'm fairly confident in right now. But even still, that's the biggest rival. In that game, they should have beaten the crap out of them last year, and it took them all game to do it because it's a rivalry game and it matters more, right?
Yeah.
And the first one, and that makes me nervous. That makes me nervous. Those 2 right there. If it went from 2 to 9 or 10 of those, 9, I guess.
Yeah.
Dear God, man. Like, I'm going to be stressed, but it would be better for me as a fan, especially if you are on top of in the upper echelon of that league, which if they go, they damn well better be. Otherwise, what did you do to yourself? You just took a paycheck.
Yeah.
And you're not who you were. That's what Oklahoma has to reconcile with too. Like, you better be good because you were winning this other one almost every year.
That's a good point. How do you think the mindset is of USC in that? Like, because as you're headed to the Big Ten.
Well, and look, USC hadn't won the Pac-12 in quite a long time.
That's fair.
Right? So maybe they just kind of gotten it out of like, well, like it's been a while. We needed something new. Texas, maybe even the same way.
Yeah.
Like, well, I mean, like, we haven't won this league in years anyway. Oklahoma, Clemson, and Florida State are the ones who live in this thing, where Clemson and Florida State are really the only teams that regularly win the ACC, and Oklahoma is the only team that regularly won the Big 12. So if you're going to go into the new league, then that means that are you doing this for a paycheck? Because if you're doing it about winning the league, that's going to reduce no matter how damn good you are.
Yeah.
So now, granted, the playoff changes things a little bit. It makes it to where now there's 12 teams. So winning the league doesn't weigh as heavy on your shoulders. But even still, the jockeying for position in those leagues, yeah. And look, I'd rather see Florida State and Clemson, if they're going to leave, go to the SEC and play the teams that I mentioned than seeing them go to the Big Ten. And not to knock those teams, but Florida State versus Wisconsin doesn't do it for me like Florida State versus Auburn would.
Oh, absolutely.
Because of regionality. Again, now look, if Florida State and Wisconsin play in a bowl game, heck, light it up. Let's go. I'm all for it. But just like knowing that they're going to have to play Stanford, Cal, and SMU, I'm only excited about them playing SMU because they might do that a car ride away from my house.
Right, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So other than that, great, good, cool, but and this is just the fan perspective here. $9.99 super chat from MJB-Set93. It has never been about good matchups. It's always been about maximum money possible to play cupcakes like Indy and Vandy in conference safely. Nothing stopped good out-of-conference scheduling but greed and fear. I guess that was a little bit ago, so I probably missed the part of it. So, yeah, it's all about the money, and that's where, look, Notre Dame, again, if really they wanted to push the ACC back to the negotiating table, honestly, they could have gotten – if they call up ESPN and said, okay, our TV deal's up, but we want to be part of the ACC. Mm-hmm. Let's renegotiate and then pull Notre Dame into that or NBC into that. Then maybe that would have saved the ACC in its format. Like maybe Florida State and Clemson are like, oh, well, now here's the money we're talking about.
Right.
Now you're talking about real money because now you've got, 3 football alphas and North Carolina, who's a good football team. Wake Forest is a good football team. Pitt's a good football team most years. Those are the teams that have really regularly won it. So anyway, when we come back, David Teal from the Richmond Times-Dispatch is retired, still does a podcast with Mike Barber. He's going to be on to talk about this from the ACC perspective and how they feel about it. And I'm curious about Virginia's future and all this as well. And he's covered them for quite a long time, and Virginia Tech. So we'll have him, David Teal, when we come back. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
David Teal of he's retired, Richmond Times-Dispatch, but does a great podcast with Mike Barber, Teal and Barber, which you can listen to. And I have, especially since all this expansion talk in Florida State and Clemson and all that started, I've been tuning in regularly, David, to the Teal and Barber podcast, and really enjoy it quite a bit. So thank you guys for doing such a great job. And thanks for being on the show today. You have covered this league for a very long time, and they are in a very strange position when it comes to adding these schools. And I think across the fan bases, it's been met with okay, fine. Nobody's like knocking down the door like they were here in Big 12 country, excited about the expansion. But was this something the ACC as a league absolutely had to do because of the unsure nature of college football's future and their future in it?
Paul, inertia did not feel like a very good option for the ACC. And Jim Phillips alluded to it this afternoon in a media call where he basically said, if you don't do something, you are falling behind. And he looked at the landscape. The Big Ten will have 18, the Big 12, and the SEC will have 16 each. The ACC was sitting there at 15, not that far behind, but only 14 for football. And among those 14, there are some unhappy campers. And in the mind of a majority of the presidents in the ACC and in Jim Phillips' mind, the additions of Cal, Stanford, and SMU not only drive a little bit of revenue, not enough to get close to the SEC or the Big Ten, but it also provides some stability.
So is this a move where they can tell anybody who would potentially want to leave and figure out a way out of the grant of rights in the next few years, like, do whatever you're going to do? We've protected ourselves to the point where we absolutely need to.
I think that's part of the reasoning, but I don't believe anybody thinks that someone's going to walk out of that grant of rights anytime soon, absent a massive settlement. And right now that settlement would be north of $500 million. And let's also not forget that, let's say Clemson and Florida State are the schools that are most likely to attempt to depart. Where are they going to go? They don't have invitations from anyone, and I'm not so sure that they would. I'm also not so sure that the most valuable brand in the ACC is not North Carolina.
Is that because of academics, basketball? Like, are they the most complete package, even though football has been middle of the pack nationally for the lion's share of the last couple of decades?
Yes. And also because of the North Carolina media market and the business opportunities there. With this expansion today, Paul, the ACC now has at least one school in each of the 5 most populated states in the country and in 8 of the top 12. That's pretty good footprint to have.
No one's mentioned that at all. It's the discussion has been about, man, this travel is going to be a bear for everybody, which is true, but I guess they have the potential to everybody meets in Dallas. Now that could work out. I'm sure that's still going to get a little bit tiresome, but it's still better than, Miami flying to Stanford and Stanford flying to Miami a bunch of times a year and all that. You've covered the schools in the state of Virginia for a long time. Both of them, obviously would sit on different tier. If the thing fell apart or if there was opportunity to leave, it'd be different. How do those UVA and Virginia Tech feel about the long-term future of the ACC, or where they would be if there was not an ACC that was comfortable for them?
Well, both of them voted for the expansion, which I found interesting. Neither of those presidents has spoken to the media to explain their support of expansion, but it's the conventional wisdom, which I agree with, is that Virginia would be very attractive if, massive if, A, available, and B, if the SEC or the Big Ten were interested in expanding. Virginia Tech's in a little dicier position. Yes, the Hokies have a better football brand than the Cavaliers, but overall they just don't. And where their home might be would be anyone's guess. Culturally, they would fit in the Southeastern Conference. And, if this whole thing blew apart and Virginia ended up in the Big Ten, could I see Virginia Tech in an expanded SEC? Sure.
So how does the conference navigate? And look, covering the Big 12 here, I know that there were years and years of kind of placating Oklahoma and Texas and maybe more Texas some years than Oklahoma when it came to decisions. How did they navigate 3 malcontents that are to varying levels of publicity on that on their part? Of Florida State's been very obvious about what they desire. Clemson less obvious, and North Carolina said they voted against this because of travel, but if the Big Ten called them tomorrow, they would travel out to the West Coast twice as much as they would be with Stanford and Cal. So, that seems to me to be kind of just this is what we can tell people, but that's not the real reason. How do they deal and keep harmony in a conference that has 3 teams that are, obviously going to be malcontents no matter what?
The one way to do it is to produce more revenue, and we'll see how that works. Does planting the ACC network flag in the 2 most populated states in the country, California and Texas, how much revenue does that generate in terms of higher subscription fees for television providers? That's an unknown. But I keep coming back, Paul, to if this had been a absolute economic game changer, number one, the vote would have been unanimous, and number two, that vote would have been taken weeks ago. The fact that it became so nuanced and so protracted, and that SMU, Cal, and Stanford made such huge financial concessions in exchange for joining the league. Those 3 schools were desperate, and the ACC was desperate. And hence, they got hitched today.
Yeah, that I've been saying, like, desperation, like marriages of desperation usually don't like last very long, but again, we don't know what the future holds for anyone in this. All right, David, this also, like, when it comes to, like you said, if it was harmonious, it would have been done and more revenue would have been done weeks ago. Do you expect this to be very public going forward when it comes to the schools and wanting to get out? Or do you think that now that all the cards are on the table, it'll just kind of happen when it happens?
I think it's going to simmer and for quite some time. Florida State may not be patient enough. They're the wild card here. And I think a lot, Paul, depends on some initial results as to how this new success initiative, this unequal revenue distribution will work. And that's going to start in the 24-25 academic year to coincide with the expanded college football playoff. So if Clemson and Florida State are good enough and they win conference championships and qualify for the CFP, and maybe their men's basketball programs return to the NCAA tournament, does that hunk of revenue placate them, if only temporarily? But this story, you mentioned earlier that in the Big 12, you dealt with this regarding Texas and Oklahoma for a long time. This is going to linger. I don't believe for a minute that after the vote today, even though it was virtual, that the ACC presidents held hands and sang Kumbaya.
No, I think that a couple of them probably got off the Zoom as soon as they voted no. That's what I think happened. Last question. Notre Dame obviously has a say in this, but they're not going to play football in the ACC as a full member. Is that a slippery slope for the ACC to give them that much sway when Notre Dame could solve a big chunk of their problem?
Notre Dame could solve a huge chunk of this. And the irony of the Irish, or maybe even the arrogance, of advocating for membership changes in a conference they refuse to embrace all in is rich indeed. It's a source of consternation within the league.
I mean, it would seem to me that the only way to get more people to renegotiate in the middle of a big contract would be for Notre Dame to say, look, we are going to join a conference because long-term, that's where things are going. We are going to join the ACC because we don't want to join the Big Ten, because we would like, of course, if they join the ACC, they have way more control over the other schools than they would in the Big Ten, obviously. We're going to do that because that's the closest we can get to what we had before. ESPN, NBC, let's get at the bargaining table, and let's get everybody some money. That's the way to save this thing, but Notre Dame has no interest in that.
The only way, Paul, that Notre Dame joins a conference for football is A, if they believe their access to the college football playoff is compromised, and B, they don't get a sweet deal from NBC.
I don't see either of those two things being a problem for them.
If it's not a problem, if it's not a problem for Notre Dame, then Notre Dame will continue to be a big problem for the ACC.
Well, David, I appreciate you hopping on the show. I know it was late notice. I really, a few weeks ago, we've had you on the show before, but when all this started, I said, let's go and find some podcasts. Oh, I know David. He's been on the show. Mike Barber's been on the show. Let's listen to that podcast, and now it's just in my feed. So I've been listening to you guys a lot. You guys are doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Paul.
Yes. Teal and Barber podcast available where you get podcasts. If you're a college football fan and want to know about the ACC, they're plugged in and they know what's going on. David, thanks so much for hopping on the show today.
You bet. Have a great weekend.
All right. Yes, David Teal, Richard. Okay, so Garrett, we're going to do something we've never done before because we are a little bit limited on time with Billy Embody.
All right.
So I am going to have to take this call on the air.
Let's do it. Let's ride, man. Let's get weird. Yeah, he's got the little funky music.
Yeah. Probably going to have to.
Hello.
Hey, Billy, it's Paul. Sorry, I couldn't do the call during a break because we ran over. I wanted to make sure we got you on time. So this is live on the air right now. You answering the phone and our usual 30 seconds of pleasantries. So how you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. It's been quite the day.
Yeah, I'll bet. We have talked about this. And look, I was telling Garrett, our producer, a second ago, there are games last night. We spent 7 minutes on it total because of this. This has been your whole life for a couple of months now, is SMU getting in the ACC. What is the vibe around Dallas today, around the campus of them getting in the big time or in the power conferences today, even though they had to make huge sacrifices to do it?
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. I woke up and jumped on a flight to actually go see a recruit in Florida. So I thought I was in the clear jumping on a 6 a.m. flight, and maybe this would get a decision out around 10 Central. But nope, bright and early around 7 a.m., this dropped. And when I tell you there are people that have been around since the Pony Express, seen it all unfold with the program starting from scratch to now being, in a continued role supporting it. I mean, a lot of people have tears about today. It is that emotional. It's been a long, long road for SMU to get back to this level. Now they need to kick the door down and go win a conference championship or play for one this year. But they still have been working so hard through the years on facilities, on coaching salaries, on support. NIL now, it's been this group effort that really got, I think, ignited when they didn't get into the Big 12, when UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati got in. And then you couple that with Sonny Dykes leaving, and there are a lot of motivated people, namely the chairman of the Board of Trustees, David Miller, who just spent probably the better part of a year and a half campaigning, pulling in support from George W. Bush to Condoleezza Rice, Oliver Luck, hiring consultants, and going on the offensive to get this done. And to see it all come together on campus, they just wrapped up their celebration. This is actually perfect timing on campus. It was emotional. It was a statement that SMU is back in the ranks among top college programs. Again, they need to go out and win at a high level on the football field and other programs, but it's been such a long road. It was really emotional from what I've seen today.
It's been hard for anybody not named Clemson and Florida State to win the ACC in football. It's been hard for anybody not named Duke or North Carolina, although Miami's been really fantastic lately, to win the ACC in basketball. But that's not obviously what this is about. How do you feel about, over the next 5 years, their ability to compete in that conference and be near the top of it?
Yeah, I think in basketball they have a lot of strides to make. They're still kind of rebuilding that program. But, in football, this is a program that has a lot of NIL support. When I tell you it's in the millions per year, it's probably around $2 million that they commit annually, and they've gone out and got the best transfer class in the group of 5 the last 2 years. They've been among the top overall transfer classes, and they've just been missing that Power 5, Power 4 now, or Power 3, whatever you want to put it as, conference to help recruit high school players at a high level. And now that they have that, they're expected to bring in a lot more talent. And the big thing, though, is the support from the NIL side of things is there to continue to, if there is a situation where they need to push on that front, they feel confident now that they can compete with just about anyone. And that's what it's all about, is getting players. And this roster has been turned over going into this season where they feel like they can win an AAC championship. as in their final year in the league, and that would catapult them into feeling pretty good about coming into the ACC and being competitive. I think once you make that jump from a group of 5 to a power conference, your depth is going to have to continue to be upgraded and your talent just overall. But they feel like they're going to be able to compete. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to compete for an ACC championship in year one. I don't know if that's feasible just yet, but we'll see what the transfer portal brings them again this off season. But they will have a football team that isn't going to come in and necessarily be a doormat, and that's because they have the support to go out and get players of that are quality and that fit their system and want to be at SMU, and they've showed that this off season. So I think they're headed in the right direction, and they need to go out and make a statement this year as they go off to the ACC in 2024.
Billy, I'll say this, and this is as someone, I'm an FSU grad, so I follow them, religiously. If FSU and Clemson and North Carolina lead that league, and I think if that happens, then Miami's probably out too. So if those 4 teams, even though Miami hasn't won since 2001, and not even when they were in the ACC, they haven't won the ACC at all. But if you take those 4 teams out of it, it's kind of a similar situation to the Big 12 where you take Oklahoma and Texas out and start kind of a new league. SMU could really, whenever that time is that those schools might leave, kind of be one of the better teams just by being there.
Yeah, absolutely. And growing up in Florida, I watched a lot of Florida State too. So I know that history and what they're aiming for. And I think it's going to be one of the more intriguing things over if it takes a decade and 3 years to unfold as to, how they go about maybe either their next conference move or whatever happens on that route is going to be interesting. But you're absolutely right. If those schools find a way to somehow get out, SMU is going to be in position to, be right at the top of that league. And, but whenever that happens, quite honestly, with the way SMU is investing in their football program, there's a chance they're going to be competitive right at the top during that time. They're going to have to land some of those 4-star, 5-star type guys here and there. And if not, supplement them with really good transfers. But SMU has a good blueprint for doing that. They just have been missing that power conference appeal. But, whatever the future of the ACC looks like, whether that's with or without those 3 teams, SMU is, trust me, they are committed as ever, especially now that they're finally in. You'll see even more donations roll in. I know they have a lot of people with wealth that maybe were more casual with their support of athletics, but now they're expecting a lot of that to ramp up even more, which is just going to put them in, an even stronger position as they, try to enter the league and make some noise.
Well, you mentioned, losing Sonny Dykes earlier, and losing Sonny Dykes to your crosstown rival, really, was salt in a wound already. This really probably positions them better to make sure that if Rhett Lashley gets hot like Sonny Dykes did, that they can say, well, now you can stay here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And obviously, coming off of the Sonny Dykes departure, I've looked at just kind of how coaches go about their futures a little differently. Even Luke Fickell leaving Cincinnati for Wisconsin kind of surprised me, even though that was it's still a sizable gap in what the Big Ten resources are and things like that. But with Rhett Lashley, I think he's very happy at SMU. I know he just built a home relatively close to campus, and he's been, really committed to the program. He wanted to come back. He wanted this job while he was the offensive coordinator at Miami. In fact, when he left for that job, he told me, I hope I find my way back here pretty soon. So it's pretty interesting when, the job was very clearly opening up that he ended up getting it and taking it over. But, SMU, when Sonny Dykes was leaving, they were prepared to back up the Brinks truck for him and pay him $4.5 million a year and give him a 6-year deal and give assistant coaches, salary boosts and get shovels in the ground for the $110 million end zone complex. And, Sonny Dykes, I think, was already very far down the road with TCU and ultimately ends up going that way. But this is a school that even back then was ready to pay for a coach to stay as long as he's proved, to be worth that type of money. And I think Rhett Lashley probably, I assume they're going to be right at the top of the AAC this year. He's probably going to get a raise just because you've got to get that in line with other ACC schools. But he's a guy that I think has a list of jobs that would probably intrigue him, but also that list of jobs, maybe in Arkansas, his home state, and Auburn. I don't know if they'll be looking at a new coach here, that soon. So, for now, he's that guy for SMU, and he's fully committed. I can tell you that.
Billy Embody on 3.com covers SMU LSU recruiting. It's a fantastic writer. Anyway, he's been on the show with us the last couple of weeks, and certainly appreciate you doing that, Billy. I know that you had to get off the phone early, so I promised and I delivered. Thanks for hopping on the show.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, and have a good rest of your or have a great Labor Day weekend.
All right, thanks, Billy. Billy Embody on 3.com with us, and Garrett, I was running right on time, and then David Teal he had really interesting things to say.
He did,
and really, and a guy who's covered the league that long, but he had some darts he threw, and he's got a very kindly voice to him. But what he said about Notre Dame, what he said about what's going on and the contention, I think people need to go back when we post that video and watch and listen to what he said about how the ACC and what it's going to be, and if this was anywhere near substantial revenue, the problems would be solved.
Absolutely.
Problems would be solved. It's not. And that's why Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina are yeah, whatever.
We go.
Yeah. I do think it's funny. North Carolina is saying, I'm going to harp on this. And we got Sam Bradshaw next. But this is about plane travel and all that. We're worried about that. Yeah, that's the soccer coach that can say that. He's right. It's going to be pain in the ass for him. Yeah. But it's going to be a lot more than they're used to, and it's going to be an adjustment. But again, they would not give a crap what he said about anything if the Big Ten called tomorrow, and they're the Big Ten wouldn't be oh well, we'll have Oregon meet you guys in Dallas. They're no, you're going to Oregon.
Yes,
because we're giving you a bunch of money, so go there, figure it out.
Money talks.
That's what would happen. So for them to say that, sometimes these really, again, I see these really smart people release statements and they don't ask the next, because if I said, well, what if the Big Ten called you tomorrow and you could join that league for $60 million more than you're getting right now, North Carolina could lie to me and say, well, no, we're committed to the ACC in perpetuity. They could say that. But then you kind of get them in the oh yeah, we didn't think of that.
Well, then it'd also be well, see, all that extra money is gonna carry over for our travel costs, so it won't be that big of a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. When we come back, Sam Bradshaw, SicEm365.com. We'll ask him about how he sees the TV math that he's going to have to run on this working out, plus his thoughts on Texas State and Baylor. This is 365 Sports.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs, too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bar, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning vent. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
.365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Welcome in, Sam Bradshaw, Sikkim365.com. I am having to do my regular job and all this, and we were switching producers, and Jack just reminded me hey, the break's about to end. You may want to call the guest that we're about to have. So that happened here on 365 Sports. Sam Bradshaw, Sikkim365.com, joins us now. And Sam, we'll talk about Baylor and Texas State. Obviously, you've done a ton of really good in-depth work on the film there, but you spent a lot of time on realignment and television ratings and revenues and all that. How do these new teams help at all if in the television ratings and helping maybe the ACC garner some more revenue from that down the line?
Thanks for having me on. And the new trio probably isn't going to be a big shot in the arm rating wise. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the contract actually ends up working for that. Just because the ACC has so many games that don't even get to a lot of the national platform because they have so much tied up in the ACC network and on the games that are sub-licensed up until recently through Raycom, but now are going to be on the CW for the next few years, and I think ESPN takes them back here in a few years. It's going to be really interesting to see that, but, Stanford and Cal had probably the cushiest setup to generate big ratings in terms of their schedule in the Pac-12 every year, because you had USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington every single year. Nobody else in the conference had that. And yet, despite that, Cal was at the bottom of the television rankings within the conference. They were second or third worst. And then you had Stanford, who had some big years early in the decade, but had been struggling as of late. And, SMU is a solid American Athletic Conference program, and they've got a lot of history going back to the Southwest Conference, but they are not the biggest player in Dallas. They're probably behind a couple Big 12 teams, remaining Big 12 teams in that regard, probably all three of them. It's not something where these guys are going to come in and give you just a ton of high-level TV ratings. This seems like a long-term hey, if we drop below 14 full members, ESPN can renegotiate the deal on us. Let's add some members while we can so that should we lose 3, we're still good. Or if we lose people in the future, we could potentially add people back as we lose people and keep the deal going.
So ultimately, television wise, it's not gonna move the needle.
I don't think it'll move the needle. I mean, don't get me wrong; these programs bring a decent amount of value. You get access to the Dallas-Fort Worth television market and the San Francisco Bay Area television market, and there's a lot of TV sets in those markets. Now, Dallas-Fort Worth, Dallas County is probably one of the lighter as a percentage of the population that likes college football. It's one of the lighter percentage counties in Texas, but you're also getting Tarrant. You're also getting Denton County. You're also getting a lot of those. And, and then the state of California as a whole is not very crazy about college football, but there's a lot of TV sets there. So you're getting at least some bit of a market that you could potentially realize if the team can have a big enough year to draw in a bunch of casual eyeballs. And then you're also getting one piece of inventory. If they continue it, it might just get folded into the ACC scheduling agreement with Notre Dame. But if Stanford can keep their game with Notre Dame separate and just have that as the continuing annual game they have with the Irish, that would be a big inventory item every other year that would help the conference with their inventory with ESPN.
So how do you think, just your opinion long term, how does this work out for the ACC, especially if they can't keep 3 of their members that voted against it and the 3 pretty big ones happy?
Well, long term, whenever this deal's up and it's time to negotiate the next one, you will want to have those members with you. They're the ones that are the difference between, that's the difference between conferences that are getting in the 40 to 60 million range right now and the conferences that are getting in the low 30s, in television revenue. Big brands that everybody identifies that can really draw the eyeballs, like a Florida State, like a Clemson. Those are the ones that they have to keep happy. And if they don't, it'll be a markedly less desirable contract for the TV partners to land. I do think they have strength in numbers, and I think that was a good portion of why they did this move. These were 3 schools that the presidents were content to add that give you a little bit of a buffer should you run into some rusties ahead, because just because it makes them happier not to add them doesn't necessarily mean they were going to stay anyway. I view it very similar to the situation the Big 12 had in 2016, where Texas may not have wanted to expand, but had the Big 12 added Cincinnati and BYU and UCF back then, I think Texas probably would have kiboshed the Houston edition, even though the same principle goes for Houston. If you'd added them back then, you're not on the edge of your seat wondering if your conference is going to collapse in 2021. You're just wondering how many others might go out the door, but you'd have strength in numbers. And I think the ACC is kind of taking the alternate route here, where they know they've got a pro rata clause from their TV partner, and they're going to use it to ensure that whatever the ACC is, at least a form of it stays together, which is more than the Pac-12 can say right now.
Sam, so are you going to try to Venn diagram all this and project out? I mean, you've done really good at kind of weeding out the really good. You've been great, excellent at it. Weeding out the nonsense when it came to TV numbers and getting down to here's what people are really watching. Do you try to Venn diagram this and put it all together to project it out? How do you do that to try to make it sense projecting what the ACC could look like ratings wise down the line?
Well, first off, we got to understand exactly where all this excess inventory that they're getting from 3 schools worth of home games is going to go. They've got a contract with ABC ESPN where they effectively own everything, and they take a certain percentage of the inventory to partner on the ACC network, and then they sub-license a certain percentage of that inventory to Raycom. So only I think 30 to 35 games of the ACC content made it to ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU. So does that go up, or are some of these going to have to be earmarked for the ACC network in order to fight for carriage right negotiations, or are they legally bound there? What kind of deal constraints are you going to be limited by? That's the first question I have. I do think this gets a little bit more exposure for the ACC, because once you reach a critical point of inventory on the ACC network, it makes more sense for ESPN to push it elsewhere. But is that elsewhere more games on national broadcast, or is that elsewhere ESPN Plus, where they currently don't make ACC teams subscribe for that, and all of a sudden they now have like 17 or however many games to play with to potentially do that for their business model.
All right, Sam, Baylor versus Texas State tomorrow. You've broken down the film on this game. Baylor's, but is it a little challenging to do that, or a breakdown of what you've seen? Because Texas State's all new. Baylor's going to have a ton of new players, most of whom didn't see a lot of time last year. What kind of challenge was that to, work out the strengths and weaknesses of this game?
It's always a bit of a challenge, and Texas State for the last 3 years has been one of the more transfer portal heavy teams. And Kenny's doing it out of necessity this year because of how transfer portal reliant Spavital had been. He has to get somebody in there to play this year, but he's going to try and build the program with high school guys on subsequent classes. And, you really go and you study Incarnate Word, because if you're bringing the same coordinators, chances are the basic framework of what they're going to do is going to be very, very similar to what they did at Incarnate Word. And defensively, it's a 4-2-5. They're smaller, faster defenders. They like to play a lot of man coverage last year. Whether they do that with the new guys they got is anyone's guess. They've got to be able to put their guys in position to be successful. And if you don't have guys that can man cover, you got to abandon it, but they may have it. I'm not quite familiar with all the new guys they brought in that regard. But where they really get interesting to study is their offense. You've got some of the wider wide receiver splits that you saw from the Briles era Baylor teams, and you've got some of the RPOs they have, but their screen game and some of their play design is absolutely nasty. It's going to be a week where Baylor guys are going to have to be in the film room and be very aware of what might be coming, because they like to go up tempo. They like to show you a lot of different things. They use a lot of motion. They use quarterback run game. They use deep option routes that the run and shoot was predicated on, that you also saw used during the Briles years. But you also see a lot of West Coast concepts. So things like 3-man snag, double slants, mesh sit. You've got Y over. You've got a lot of different concepts that are a little bit more ball control passing. So it's not just one thing, and that screen game is absolutely nasty. They have some screens that are very, very well designed that look exactly like their base run plays to begin with. And it's not, we have receivers blocking for each other on a run play. This looks like a run play, and the guys you thought were blocking at the line are going out to get your DBs.
Do you think that Baylor should be able to control the clock on them pretty well?
I think Baylor's offense is going to have a great amount of success being able to move the ball on these guys. Clock control will really depend on what kind of style of play they make you go with. If they're constantly blitzing you and daring single coverage, you'll have a productive offense, but it may not take that much time. Just with potential for big plays or incompletions getting you off the field and intermittently having that. But if they kind of sit back and play you honest, I think Baylor will be able to run the ball consistently. I think Baylor will be able to milk that clock on them. It's the other side of the ball where you've got some speedy weapons at running back and receiver, and you've also got a guy that's got RG3 kind of speed at quarterback and Malik Hornsby. He's one of the two options they might go with. He's an Arkansas transfer, and they've got Auburn transfer TJ Finley, who's a big guy. Kind of reminds me of Jamarcus Russell in the sense that he's a big guy, but he's an athletic big guy. I mean, he's not going to win any 100-meter races for you, but he's enough to be a viable runner. Those two guys and the scheme they've got, that's where it really comes down to for this game, in my opinion. Baylor's missing their top nose tackle after graduating their top 3 from last year. How well do you hold up on the defensive interior? Facing this team is going to be very different if you can stuff their running game playing shorthanded in the box versus if you have to add an extra guy in there. If they can get running on you at tempo, this offense becomes a whole other can of worms.
Sam Bradshaw, S11 on the site, does a lot of great work for us when it comes to TV ratings, when it comes to breaking down film. So if you're a SicEm365.com subscriber, you already know that. If you're not, and you want to read Sam's stuff, SicEm365.com. Always great stuff. Sam, thanks for hopping on today. I'll talk to you next Friday.
Yeah, sounds good, Paul. Thank you.
There we go. Sam Bradshaw, S11. When we come back, Grayson Grunhafer, SicEm365.com recruiting analyst, will join us and talk about the game coming up. And also, not to jump ahead, but kind of assess Utah, who we saw last night. This is 365 Sports.
Save big during the Labor Day sales event at Allen Samuels. Get a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with $3,500 plus 2.9% for 72 months with no payments for 90 days at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoke. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
365 Sports here on your Friday, and Grayson Grunhafer, SicEm365.com recruiting analyst with us. And Grayson, week 1 is here. And look, I think we, if people go on the website and look at our picks, they're not going to think that anybody's predicting an upset here. But I do find it interesting that I would think that Baylor's biggest weakness or question mark of any question mark they have is in the secondary. And the first rattle out of the box, they're going to get a team that's probably going to have to throw it 50 to 60 times.
For sure. And I think your conventional wisdom for a lot of people is that, okay, well, since that team's going to throw it a ton, then that's going to be a huge disadvantage for Baylor, since everyone, we've talked about it, the cornerbacks, the safeties, secondary in general. What's that going to look like? But on the flip side, my prediction, I have Baylor winning 45-17. So that's like right in line with where the line is at right now, because I think Baylor's a 28-point favorite or 27.5, something along those lines. And my reason for it is that while, yes, Texas State might be able to spread a lot of teams out and might be able to throw it a ton, I have real concerns about Texas State's ability to block Baylor up front, which means I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well, and Baylor's probably going to be able to drop 8 in coverage at times, or at least be able to create a lot of pressure on their quarterbacks. And I don't have a huge belief in either of their quarterbacks either, whether it's Malik Hornsby or TJ Finley, for various reasons. Hornsby, not a great passer. Finley, not very mobile. You kind of put that all together, and I just feel like Baylor's defense is actually going to have a pretty good day, even though I do think Texas State in the long run will have a good offense this year. And then on the flip side, I don't think Texas State's defense is really going to be able to do much to stop Baylor from running the football, controlling time of possession, all of those things. So I guess that's kind of why I'm a little bit more bullish on Baylor's defense going into a game that I know a lot of people are a little concerned about, their secondary.
Yeah, I would just think that the turnover that's been there, which is more even than Colorado at Texas State, which tells you how many players that they flipped over in that roster. Now, a lot of them are senior and junior transfers, so they're guys with experience. But again, I think early on for Texas State, you're going to just kind of see a hodgepodge of probably some pretty good players. Look, Malik Hornsby is one of the best athletes on the field for either team, no matter what you say on Saturday, but is he going to be ready for what is coming at him? I think he will give Baylor some challenges, but ultimately, this team needs probably a lot more time to come together.
Definitely. And you know what? It's very interesting because, you see what Lindsey Scott did for Incarnate Word last year, which is where G.J. Kinney was at before. And he was a good runner. But more often than not, he wanted to stand in the pocket and make throws. And I'm very curious how they decide to go about this on tomorrow, because while you could play Malik Hornsby and go for the upside with the rushing capabilities and the ability to have a true dual threat quarterback, I just don't think he's a very good passer, at least at this point in his career. And, while that could be something that changes over time, I really don't see a lot of upside there currently with him throwing the football, whereas TJ Finley, at least he's shown flashes of throwing the football. And if they're able to protect the quarterback a little bit better, then I actually think Finley could possibly give Baylor more problems than Hornsby will in this game. But we'll see. I get it, the whole best athlete on the field type thing. But in general, if he's not throwing the ball well, then I don't think Texas State has any hope of moving football.
So, Grayson, we got to see Utah last night without Cam Rising. He apparently is going to have a robot knee brace on. I've never seen a knee brace bigger than that one in my life, than the one they were showing in the videos there. And if he does play, he's going to have a knee brace on. If not, they're going to see probably the same rotation that Florida saw. What does Baylor need to do well this week for you to feel more confident about their defense, and particularly their offense going against a really tough Utah defense next week?
Yeah, I think I really need to see the pass game from Baylor as far as the offensive side. Florida actually had some success throwing the football. They threw for over 300 yards. Their issue was they couldn't run the ball at all. And it put a lot of pressure on Graham Mertz, who I don't view as being a very good quarterback. And that's why I had tons of concerns going into the year about Florida. And actually, I don't even think they're going to make a bowl game this year. And last night kind of confirmed that a little bit for me. Their offense wasn't very good, couldn't run the football, couldn't throw the football efficiently enough. But at times, there were guys open downfield. And I think for Baylor, they're going to have to be able to have success capitalizing on those opportunities. We'll see if they can do that. I think, they're going to have to do it against Texas State some. Because if they're able to do that against Texas State, I do think it could translate pretty well next week. But it's something that is a question mark going into the year. I know a lot of people have questions about Blake Shapen, and while I don't think we'll see too many concerns tomorrow, I do think he's going to have a much bigger challenge against Utah, of course, and they're going to have to play really well throwing the football. Now, defensively, I wasn't really impressed with Utah on the offensive side. I felt like they kind of took what was there. They had the big 70-yard touchdown, which was a great play call and a very good throw as well. But outside of that, they were just kind of trying to be methodical, which is great. But I didn't see too many, crazy playmakers on that offense that really give me a lot of pause about what Baylor's going to be able to do against them. So I actually think coming out of that game, I feel even more confident that Baylor, should be able to at least have a game plan for slowing them down. And then, as far as the pass game goes, I think that's a little to be determined on the Baylor side of things. But either way, it's probably going to be a very low scoring and defensive type of football game once we get there.
Yeah, not to put the cart before the horse, just I want to get your opinions on what you saw of Utah last night against Florida. And Florida is currently, to me, and of course last year was Anthony Richardson, but less impressive now than they were last year. And I don't know if Billy Napier, I think it's premature to say he doesn't have a handle on that, but he could make the people in Gainesville really impatient really fast if they don't show some kind of growth this year. And they've got a really, Utah is maybe their third or fourth toughest game on their schedule.
Exactly. And that definitely, that gave
and I'm not knocking Utah
when
there.
I saw their schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt. They got a tough schedule, Paul. It's a gauntlet, honestly. You got to play Tennessee and Georgia on there. There's a couple other tough games as well. It's going to be tough. And you want to talk about a program that, and really this is for everyone in the country, honestly, but they were kind of in on Sam Hartman as well. And you kind of look back on that and go, oof, man, if they would have landed Sam Hartman, you'd be feeling a lot better about Florida than currently with Graham Mertz.
Yeah, that was that's an interesting one. Okay, who will we be talking about on Sunday morning from Baylor that we're not talking about today?
True that we're not talking about, because obviously when you first asked that question, it was very easily the transfers. When you look at Keytron Jackson and Dom Richardson, and those are kind of the obvious ones. But I think, I think going into and Mike Smith and guys that we've heard about a ton all off season. So I think if you're going to look for maybe an under the radar type guy, I think, how about a couple? I'll name a couple for you. I think, kind of a way off the radar. How about freshman punter Palmer Williams? How about that? That's way off the radar, but he's had a really good camp. He was the number one rated punter in the entire nation, according to Chris Saylor. And I have a feeling that he's going to look really good and kind of give people flashbacks to how Isaac Power looked early in his career at Baylor as well, where everyone got really excited and he was very consistent for them for a long time. But I guess outside of him, a couple other ones, Trey Wilson, the true freshman, a defensive lineman. He'll be backing up TJ Franklin. I think he's going to play a ton this year. I think he's going to be really good, really active. And for a true freshman, that's a big deal, especially up front, whether it's on the offense line or defense line, to have a guy that's a true playmaker as a freshman. That's not something you normally see very often. So I think he's definitely one that we'll probably be talking about. And then also, on the offensive line, I think two guys like Caden Siraki and Tate Williams. They've both been in kind of position battles this year with Elijah Ellis. And I think whoever wins that starting job at right guard and right tackle, I think we'll be talking about them in a much more positive light, because I think right now you're kind of sitting there going, okay, they had to replace a lot of guys up front. You feel really good about Clark and Campbell Barrington. Gavin Byers is an older guy. You kind of know what to expect there. But those other two positions, is Baylor really going to be able to fill those with really talented players? And I think ultimately we're going to see that on Saturday and come away with a very positive outlook, I think, at both those positions.
Grayson Grunhay for SicEm365.com. Grayson, enjoy the game tomorrow, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Grayson Grunhay for SicEm365.com with us. The top 5 is next. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people. Good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. I know I said the top 5 is next, but I like running early, but not maybe...
You're a liar, Paul.
25 minutes early. I do. No, I do. I lied, Jack. I lied. I'm sorry.
Thank you for admitting it.
Yeah. So, yes, I said the top 5 is next. That was not true.
Oh, well.
And I do want to use a little bit of this time, which is not going to be a long segment. There were 2 pretty big college football games last night, and there were others that opened up. Look, Arizona State and Mizzou are waking up this morning thanking their lucky stars that they're not leading SportsCenter of like, look what these teams did. Look, take it from someone who had to explain to all his friends why Jacksonville State figured out a way to win.
I remember how mad you were about that one.
So mad.
It was hilarious.
Look, Mike Norvell beat the Gators last year and the Hurricanes and got us to 10 wins. So I forgive him.
Begrudgingly?
Look, if he beats LSU, Clemson, Miami, and Florida in the same year, like I'll hide a body for that guy. But that being said, I know how it is. But the 2 things last night from the game, so I thought were pretty interesting, were that Florida is not I mean, they're not better. Like they're not yet. You know, I still think you need to give Billy Napier some time, but I have a theory. I'm going to float this out to you.
Yeah.
Urban Meyer did that documentary talking about the glory days.
Uh-huh.
He also ended very poorly in Jacksonville.
He's trying to get...
And a guy with that ego.
Yeah.
Is he trying to get that one more job? And could that one more job be a return trip to Florida?
I think so, yeah. Honestly, I'm buying it. I am buying that theory. Napier's not lasted very much longer, so
I mean,
opening's going to be there.
Yeah. So now, look, they've got DJ Lagway coming in next year, but that is, especially on defense, one of the slower Florida teams I've seen. And that's going to be tough for them, the SEC. Now, Utah, who we get to see next week.
I'm sorry. DJ Lagway, I'm curious if he's going to stick to that with Florida just because of how bad they look right now. Like, if you're a 5-star recruit, you got to be, did you fall to a 4-star? I can't remember. Point is, you've got to have talent around you to help you win. And if he doesn't think it's there, he might decide somewhere else is better for me.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing. Jaden Rashada went out and won that game last night. Now, granted, like I said, it was a nail biter against Southern Utah for Arizona State, but he looked pretty good in stretches, and he wasn't supposed to start, but you can see what he's got. And why he was the number one quarterback recruit in the country. And that Arizona State, if they can build around that guy, holy cow, he's got a lot of potential. But it was his first rattle out of the box, and Southern Utah gave him all they wanted. And he looked, he looked like a true freshman at times, which you would expect. Very few true freshmen walk out and you go, oh, wow, what's this kid, 24, 25? Do you play minor league baseball and come back? What's going on here?
Are you Brandon Whedon?
Yeah. So, no, but that notwithstanding, Utah, though, without Cam Rising, without their starting center, without a bunch of, I think 2 or 3 offensive linemen and 2 pretty big defensive linemen, physically mauled Florida last night. I mean, it was over and over, pound. And Florida just didn't have the answers to that. And that's not how you win anywhere. It's especially how you don't win in the SEC. And so if last night was a harbinger of anything to come for Florida, they've got a long way to go. I don't think you get better firing coaches every 2 years. But if you've got a whale hanging out there willing to come back who won you 2 national titles in 5 years on the job.
Yeah.
Then, that could be too much to ignore. And, Graham Mertz, he's 19-13 as a starter. We're 19-14 now. He's 19-14. You knew what he was going to be. He's got plenty of evidence out there.
Honestly, I felt like I was watching a freshman quarterback out there. Stuff just seemed indecisive. A good freshman quarterback, don't get me wrong. He made some good throws, but little indecisive, little antsy in the pocket, it looked like it could have been his first career start.
Yeah.
Maybe that's harsh, but
yeah. And they did and the other thing is they had they had penalties. They had one penalty that led to a Utah touchdown because they had 2 number 3s on the field.
That was hilarious.
Whose fault is that? It's Billy Napier and his coaching staff's fault.
Yeah.
2 number 3s on the field.
I will say my big question coming away from that game was, what's up with Utah? Were they just we're going to toy with them so much, we're going to let them be within striking distance practically the whole game? Because they could have blown that thing out in the first quarter.
I just think part of the inexperience at quarterback didn't allow them to do that.
To me, that's why I don't look at the Baylor game and think, oh, yeah, Utah's going to win that 100%.
No, it's going to be – there's going to be 2 very physical teams out there. The question is, can Baylor match that physicality, and does Utah get anybody back? Now, I would not buy that Cam Rising is going to play next week either.
You don't trot Cam Rising out in the 100-plus degree on the turf because, let's talk about the field heat level. It's going to be hot.
Did you see his knee brace?
No, I did not, but you said it was massive and robotic.
It's the biggest knee brace I've ever seen.
Plus, you've got I think they've got UCLA soon after. I don't know if it's the next week, but like that's not a matchup I'm scared of. It sounds like if you skip Baylor, you can really ease him in, and that might be what's best for them to try and win the Pac-12. If their goal is the playoff and they're scared of losing to Baylor, that's when you start putting that pressure to play him, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I just don't know. If he gets back and plays well, I hope I get to see him.
Me
I love
too.
watching Cam Rising.
I want to see the best play.
Yeah.
So it would stink if he didn't play, but like I don't know. I'm not feeling like he will.
Yeah. All right. And that Nebraska and Minnesota.
Classic Big Ted.
I mean, it was 13-10.
I felt like I was watching Iowa.
Yeah. I mean, it was 13-10. You've got a Minnesota team. We had Pierre Nugent on the triple option yesterday. He covers Minnesota. He does the PJ Flex show every week there on Fox 9. And he kind of said, look, they've got to have a whole new offense, completely new everything. Quarterback, running back, receiver, all that is new at Minnesota for PJ Fleck. And you saw that. It looked new last night. And Nebraska was what Nebraska was before Matt Rule got there, where they took control of the game as much as you can in a game that's 10-3, but they were kind of in control of that game and then just made dumb mistake after dumb mistake that led to their ultimate demise. Now, I don't think that will last, but clearly Matt Rule knows what he's dealing with now, and sometimes it takes more than one shower to get clean. You know what I'm saying?
I felt like that was a classic Matt Rule first season game. I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah.
His teams have rough first seasons.
He's also
college teams, let's be clear.
He's also not unwilling to strip it down to the rivets and deal.
Yeah.
Like if that's what it's not as much of a like
watch out for any freshman that's playing right now for him, because if they are the hard worker that probably earned them that spot on the field, if they are that kind of culture guy for him, by the time they're junior and senior, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, this guy's good. We didn't think he'd be good. He was like a 3-star recruit or something, but he's good.
Yeah. I'll give you Jalen Petrie, Terrell Bernard. I mean, those guys.
I don't necessarily give him Petrie, but I'll give him Bernard.
I'll give him
I know Petrie hung around. It was part of that recruiting class, but I feel like Aranda unlocked him here at Baylor.
I don't know. He was pretty good when Rule was here, but yeah.
Rule had him playing linebacker.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, look, Aranda took him to the next level. That's for sure.
Aranda made him make the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, not taking anything away from Jalen Petrie and his work.
But yeah. It's just going to be it's going to be a process for Nebraska. And now, look, he doesn't have as much. It's not as hard to where he walks into a room and has 6 offensive linemen where you can't just go get enough warm bodies. Like, they really had to. They go, okay, we had to get more people in here that are ready to play, and really had to kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel. And that was just right before. Now with the one-time transfer rule, you can get guys in there that'll probably be better. That doesn't mean they're going to be good, though.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Just because you got them doesn't mean they're going to be good. And I think they probably still have a good chance to win a bowl game or make a bowl game, but we'll see. It's just there was some good attitude there from Nebraska, but not the best. And granted, I had to watch this game condensed this morning on YouTube because
they put a solid 20 minutes of it up.
Next Star, who owns our local Fox affiliate, is in a battle with DirecTV, so I can't watch anything that's on Fox right now.
Oh,
just like poor people on Spectrum, Disney pulled ESPN from Spectrum last night because they're in a battle. So happy football season, everybody. Good luck watching it.
Yeah. There are ways, Paul.
Yeah, there are ways. But if you're not ready to go down that road, Jack, some people aren't.
A lot of people aren't.
Let me tell you this. So a guy came to us when everybody was jailbreaking their Fire Sticks a couple years ago, and they showed me how to do it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And they took me to this website, and I was like, hey, what is the benefit to this person putting up all these free movies for me to just go connect my personal information to? Like, they just doing it because, I don't think I should pay full price to watch Ratatouille.
Ratatouille.
I tend to think that there's something sinister at the helm here, and
it's either completely safe because they're one of those people that's like extremely socialist. I don't know another way to put it,
and have no other things to do with their life,
and they're not malicious, or they're absolutely sending your data to the worst places.
Yeah. Oh man, how did my identity get stolen? Well, I downloaded 75 free movies yesterday, so could have been the reason why. I don't know. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's another time to speak with Samantha Duvall from TexasBeefHouse.com, handles the marketing and someone that you will talk to a lot when you do call for the great product of the Texas-raised Wagyu beef. It's college football season, tailgating, it's a big deal. People love to put beef and pork and chicken, etc. on the grill. Let me know what you have.
We've got everything. If you've got a morning game, you can get our breakfast sausage or our bacon. You can tailgate with some breakfast tacos. If you've got an afternoon or evening game, we of course got our hamburger patties. They're half-pound patties, 4 patties to a package, and we even have jalapeno and cheese patties. They're amazing. They'll blow your mind. Just that extra flavor, not too spicy. They have a high-heat cheese so they don't melt on the grill, and our patties don't shrink up on the grill either. Anytime you order, use our code SICK'EM10 to get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. That's Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Before we get to this, Mike Oresco on a call with AAC presidents and ADs this morning. This according to Pete Thamel. It was clear that Army is their top expansion target. He's already begun informally exploring Army as an expansion candidate. So Army and Navy would be a league game.
That's really interesting to me.
It would be a league game 2 weeks after the conference championship game, or a week after, which would mean they probably have to move that.
Yeah, that's going to cause some problems. But Army Navy better stay where it's at.
They'll make it. I mean, like they'll make it work. I mean, it's huge. Like everybody will make that work. But so pretty.
I love that game is still a big deal.
Oh, it's so awesome to watch. It's so great. I can't wait. I want to go one day. I want to go.
Yeah, same here.
Even in the cold in Philadelphia.
Paul, let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen. Let's absolutely make it happen. I have a friend, Jason Minix. They go every year.
Let's work the game. I want to take photos.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, top 5 ACC expansion questions. Now that it's happened and the ACC has officially expanded. Number 5, do the fans in the ACC care? This is like...
That's a good question.
I mean, do they, I'm sure they're happy, especially if you're not Clemson, Florida State, and UNC, who all have made it clear where they stand. But if you're a Boston College fan or a Georgia Tech fan, do you care? Or are you just like, okay, well, all right, I guess we're playing SMU now. That's what I wonder, because this is the most of all of it. Because I think, when just living through the realignment madness of the last couple of years, every move around here was met with, oh my God, this is exciting, this is great. And the Big Ten, we're going to play USC and Oregon now, oh my God, this is great. And the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma, A&M and Texas is back. And then you get to the ACC, and it's like Stanford and Pitt.
I mean, I don't know. Could be fun to see school with the history of the U go up against a school with the history of the Pony XS.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
Honestly, it doesn't move
Two of the
needle.
best 30 for 30s will now be a conference game.
Yeah.
So there you go. Yeah, so it doesn't. Number 4, how does this affect the CFP? So now that they know where everybody's going to be, and it looks like Oregon State and Washington State are going to join the Mountain West because they don't have any other options. You just heard what I said about Army. So how does this, how do they do the 5+7? Do they still do 6+6? What do they do now that they know where everybody's going to be? So they just go have these meetings this week, and then 2 days later, the ACC is like, okay, now we'll do it. Maybe that's because they know what they're going to, where they're leaning.
It might go 4-4-4. Champs, second best in the conference, and then 4 wild cards.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, you do second best, then you devalue the conference champions game.
But they were already doing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are.
No, just throwing it out.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, because the conference championship game is not necessarily the 2 best teams in the conference.
Exactly. That's going to help your Big Ten East, SEC West kind of runner up.
Well, I mean, they're getting rid of divisions in most of these too, but even still, it might not be the 2 best.
Yeah.
Honestly, because of the way those things fall. Especially
a lot of those top of division games, those have been rivalries.
Well,
whoever loses the game might end up losing out on playing in the Big Ten championship game, but they're still the second best in the conference.
Yeah, and look, with 18, just the Big Ten, for example, with 18 teams, you could have the second best team have not played what is the third best team that's going to leapfrog them to go in. And so then you don't have, there's a lot of weird math that could happen here. Number 3, how long does George Kliavkoff have a job now? Because now it's down to the Pac-2.
This time next year?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
no, probably till July when there's no more conference to manage.
Yeah. So,
They'd be smart to just cut him and say, we don't need a commissioner right now.
They still have to, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What does that mean?
Can they stop paying him, save a little money at the end?
I don't know. No, because he got a contract. So, he's probably got a contract for the next couple of years.
He ran the business into the ground.
He wasn't alone.
Yeah,
I mean, he was just the guy that was the figurehead, and they put in charge of that. But yeah, he wasn't alone. I mean, what do you do? What is his job now in these meetings without a conference? Because the minute that Oregon State and Washington State make their decision, which will more than likely be to join the Mountain West unless something comes completely out of the blue, especially since the AAC doesn't appear to be interested in that. So if they join the Mountain West, which I think would be a great move for them, given their, not a great move, but it's a good move. They'll be treated well by Gloria Nevarez, and they'll be all right. But yeah, that's going to be strange. But how long? What do you even need him to do?
I don't know.
Yeah, what after the year's over? When I'm sure he's got things to do during the year.
My answer to that question is the same answer that George Kliavkoff gave about the TV deal through the whole summer. I don't know.
It's coming. No. Well, we've got great plans. We got plans for that. Number 2. Who has the best offer for the Pac? Well, I wrote this morning, and then of course the AAC released we're not going to go west. So the best offer is the Mountain West. That's what's going to happen for them. Now,
I don't know, Paul the Whack.
Could they backfill the league? I don't think so now. I think that would have only been possible with Stanford and Cal. And even then, I think it would have been a very, very steep uphill climb.
Yeah, I think we're actually going to see the end of the Pac branding here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's over.
Like, I think the Mountain West will be the, like, westernmost FBS conference.
Yeah, probably. So,
as far as, like, the geographic center.
The Mountain West will be the best offer for them. That's probably what's going to be.
Yeah.
And number one, how long before the dissenters leave? Florida State, Clemson, and UNC voted against this. UNC is pretending like it's about plane travel. It's not. It's about money. It's all about the money. And they're trying to figure this out. But how long do you really get to keep these three teams in? Because this move was made in large part due to the fact that you knew that they're going to leave as soon as the door opens for them to do it. Whether that's in a year or 5 years or 7 years, 10 years, the minute that the door opens for them to leave, you'll just see, dust in their team colors. Just garnet and gold, orange and purple, Carolina blue, dust. That's what you're going to see. Boom, like a cartoon.
I give it 5 years.
I think the 1 year people who think it's going to be next year that are like sure of it, and there's some of those that are on Florida State's board, I think they're a little bit too optimistic. But I do think that within 5 years they will have figured out or raised enough or figured enough out to go.
I just figure it's all about the money at the end of the day, and the money will be affected by how successful teams are in the college football playoff. Playoff's about to expand, and I just think people will take these next 4 or 5 years, get used to it, and getting used to it will mean those schools, those dissenters, realizing, yeah, we're still not getting enough money. And it'll set in, it'll sink in, it'll take a bit to get them to the point, and then they'll hit the point of action.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross, all of our guests today, Emery Winter, Owen, and Levi. We're back tomorrow at 4 o'clock to 5:30 on KWT, or the CW tomorrow here in Waco for our Game Day Live pregame show. I'm out back for the postgame show tomorrow after Baylor versus Texas State. So tune in to those when you can. Certainly appreciate what you do. And we're back on Monday to wrap up the big weekend, everybody. Have a great Labor Day. See you Monday.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.